Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hey, everybody, it is Wednesday, April 29th. I'm Emerson Collins.
And I'm Del Shores.
And you're listening to
The Del and Emerson Show. Straight talk.
Real gay!
And it is a really gay week in the news.
It is such a big week in the gay news. We have so many things to talk about. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. Don't you have exciting things coming up?
I do.
What?
I have 3 California shows this week. Well, one's kind of next week. Sunday's next week, really, right?
Sure.
Yeah, but I always feel like Sunday is this week. But
Yeah.
So tomorrow night at the Purple Room in Palm Springs, and Miss Bonnie Bedelia and Mr. David Steen will be in my audience. I'm excited about that. And Friday night, I am also at the Purple Room, and I've got huge crowds there.
Of course you do. It's Palm Springs.
Palm Springs, they love me. And then Sunday night, I'm playing Uncabaret here in Los Angeles. I'll have a lot of friends and family, and the amazing McGee Monteith, who will be doing a wonderful show called Magnolia Mills live at the Limbo Lounge later on this year that I'm directing, is opening for me. And you're going to be there, so it's going to be a fun night.
It's such a big weekend of singularly.
And you know what's crazy is that I start my show, this new show starts with a story about Mr. Leslie Jordan. And today is his 60th birthday, and I want to say happy birthday, Leslie Jordan.
Happy birthday.
We love you. We're glad you were made and that you were made in God's image.
Oh, yes. As he said, what is it? He says, I fell out of my mother and into her high heels.
Out of my mama's womb and into her high heels.
Womb. I was going to say vagina, and I was like, he doesn't say that.
He says womb. He's a little more, classy.
Well,
there he is.
I mean, maybe in that one sentence, but in general, he is not.
One more time, John. Hit him.
There he is.
Okay, and you had...
I had a traumatic week.
Crazy week.
It's so ridiculous. But it's super exciting. I mean, even though I've been moving into a new apartment, and that's exciting. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be all like mask for mask gay and like do it all myself. So I rented a U-Haul, packed up the furniture, drove it to the new place, and then these two things happened within an hour and a half of each other. First, I drove the U-Haul into a tree.
I don't want to laugh.
On the side of the road. You can, you should. It's tragic.
Into a tree. I saw that tree.
Into a tree. And then I had to go, and you better believe that I took that U-Haul truck back to the U-Haul place and tap danced and batted my eyelashes and was like, oh my gosh, it was fine. It was a tree. It was on the side of the road. It wasn't overhead. It wasn't overhead. It wasn't overhead. Because that rental insurance policy doesn't apply if you hit something overhead. And I was like, well, technically.
Really?
Yeah, but they sat there and said overhead means anything above your own head. I was like, I don't know that qualifies as the definition when you're driving a vehicle. But I lost that argument and had to pay $300 to fix the U-Haul. So then I went home and was like, that's fine. We'll brush that off, shake it off. And of course, there's a tree in front of my new apartment that is like scarred for life that I see every day. And then I went to hang the very first thing on the wall and promptly smashed the crap out of my thumb with a hammer.
Thumb. It's awful.
Well, wait, it's on that camera up there. Y'all, it's purple like all the way up to the end of the fingernail. And the moral of the story is obviously I would make a terrible lesbian.
There you go. And I think I don't know, I think you could have come up with a better story. I think you could have said like this gang attacked you and with sledgehammers.
Well, I was just going to lie. But it doesn't matter because it was like above my. I was like, well, I can just tell you the truth now. It doesn't matter. I paid that $14 for that insurance because those of you at home don't know this, but when the first day of shooting Southern Baptist Sissies, I got up that morning, rented the U-Haul, and drove to our set designer's house to pick up the head, and I promptly smashed the mirror on the side of the U-Haul into a tree as well. I had bought the insurance then, and they were like, oh, you have the insurance, it's fine. So I buy the insurance because I apparently can't drive anything larger than a Mini Cooper.
Well, we need to make more friends with straight men and lesbians. We just do.
That
they could drive for us.
No, and then it costs $200 to drain the blood out of my thumbnail.
Oh my!
So the moral of the story is I should have just paid that $500 to some movers.
I could have done that. I've got a home kit. I could have done that draining. I love that shit.
So that's no. So anyway, so it was traumatic. And in the meantime, there was just so much gay news.
Leslie Jordan just text messaged me, and he goes, "Yay, team 60 and still playing with my pee-pee."
Well, it's good. It's good to acknowledge those accomplishments. All right, well, shall we get to the news? Because there is so much.
Yes, there's so much equality. Before we do, I want to thank all of you who are listening. We just got our ratings this week, and we're really excited. We almost hit 100,000 listeners last month. We are the #1 show once again on UBN. We thank UBN for hosting us and having us, and thank you all for listening to us each week. We just can't believe you're listening to us.
I know.
We run our mouths, and you're listening?
We are 860 or 50 some odd people short of 100,000 in a single month. So if you are enjoying the show, share the iTunes link to the podcast with some people. Y'all, it's free to download.
And y'all tell the church folks just to start listening, and that'll be those 800 people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's going on in equality? A lot of big week for equality.
Kicking off our equality update. Yes. Obviously, unless you live under a rock, yesterday was a hugely exciting day in the marriage equality journey. It was the opening arguments before the Supreme Court. Now, for those of you who don't have the free time or aren't as obsessed with all things political as I am, let me see if I can break down a little bit of what happened yesterday for us.
Please.
First, the main issue, there are two questions before the Supreme Court that need to be answered that were argued by both marriage equality advocates and the defendants of the marriage bans in these 4 states. The first question the justices will decide on is whether the 14th Amendment requires states to permit same-sex marriage. That's the base issue. That's the question we want the yes on, and then this is done. If they say a yes on that and apply it nationwide, this journey is over. Now, the second question is whether states that don't allow same-sex marriages must recognize them from other states. Now, that question is only important if the answer to the first question is for some reason no.
So if the first question is yes, they don't even need to even talk about the second one.
Yes, now that can be done. Now, of course, there are 9 justices on the Supreme Court, which everyone listening should know. And they all get to ask questions throughout
And if you don't know that, don't admit it.
Yeah, don't tell people. That's embarrassing. You cannot sing "I am proud to be an American" if you don't know that. And so they get to ask questions throughout the arguments portion, and a number of the justices did, which allowed prognosticators for the court to make some assumptions about where the court is likely to head. There is still a positive feeling. There is some general concern, most specifically over Justice Anthony Kennedy. He is the one that tends to be the 5th vote on most cases in one direction or the other. There are 4 judges that almost always lean liberal: Kennedy, Sotomayor, Kagan, and everyone's favorite, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Love her.
So there was a lot of attention paid to Kennedy's questions. He pressed hard on the state of Michigan's argument that it should be allowed to exclude same-sex couples from marriage, commenting that its law banning same-sex couples from marrying assumes that those couples can't have the same moral, more noble purpose as opposite-sex couples have for entering marriage. So that was a very sort of positive thing. Kennedy, Sotomayor, and Kagan asked a lot about limits states could constitutionally place on marriages and whether the state's claimed interest amount to anything more than, I love this, as Sonia Sotomayor put it, a feeling that doesn't make any logical sense. This just said basically it's an emotional religious argument. Chief Justice John Roberts probed very hard on both sides of the issue. It is possible that he could be the 6th vote in our favor, but there are many who don't want him to be because he could rule it in a way that makes it about states' rights to make the decision, which would be a sort of muted victory. So we may not actually want him to be in our favor because it could be a watered-down verdict. Of course, Alito and Scalia were terrible and homophobic, sort of bigotry-oriented questions. Scalia linked it, Alito linked it to polygamy and why siblings shouldn't be able to receive the same protections, blah, 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 that kind of nonsense.
How old is he?
Not old enough.
Oh.
So in general, and of course Clarence Thomas didn't ask any questions. He
Just
rarely
sat
does
there like
because,
a toad.
because he will definitely decide against us. So it seems that Stephen Breyer, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Elena Kagan, and Sonia Sotomayor are definitely likely to rule in our favor, and we need Anthony Kennedy at the end of the day to decide for a nationwide verdict.
And I have a question for you, and I've
Yes.
asked this before, but to explain to everybody, what if it did not go in our favor? Would all the states, a lot of the states that we have would go away? Correct?
Yes, because so many of the federal court rulings that brought same-sex marriage to many of the states in the last year were linked to the Windsor case and DOMA. They were used as the basis for giving these rights. If the Supreme Court were to say that it is actually up to the states and their legislatures to decide on the first question about the 14th Amendment, that would undo many of those court cases. That people would sue again, and some of the bans could be reinstated. So it would be really, really horrible.
Yeah, I'd probably go back to like 17 or something.
It would probably go lower than that.
Really?
Because the number of states that actually have it in their laws, as opposed to having done by a legislative decision, and so many of them were linked to last year's Supreme Court decisions. If the Supreme Court went back and showed that that was limiting, we could lose a bunch of places. So many people still feel positive. There's a little more nervousness to the positivity at this point.
But I was reading something yesterday, and I don't know if you read anything about this, but some of Kennedy's questions, his questions were just as strong in opposition or questioning when the other two cases that we won that he ruled that is his pattern.
Yes, he very often questions the side he ends up ruling with even harder than the side that he doesn't rule for, because he wants to be really sure of all of the legal argument, and I think he wants to force them to articulate it for the legal record.
And there was something else that I read that it said that they did the most recent poll, 60% now, 60% going up from 51%. Are in favor of same-sex marriage, which they do look at.
No,
they don't.
You know,
that's what this article I read. It said
the
that
entire
they do.
point of this is that they are not supposed to be swayed by the public opinion one way or the other.
Do you believe that?
Yes. These
don't.
people at the nine highest people that are legal scholars in our country, yes, I think sometimes they will rule further into what they believe is legally the case, because the country is prepared for it. But it is 100% based.
Seeing a pattern of what's going on has to be influential to a degree.
No, because it is purely based on interpretation of the Constitution. That is all these 9 people do. That we have social arguments in support of a legal right is positive and supportive, but that's what they have often ruled counter to public, because the point is, what does the Constitution allow? We have to win the constitutional argument that the 14th Amendment protects our legal right to be treated equally, to be provided equal protection under the law of the land.
Well, it's going to be interesting in the next couple of months, and how long does this last? I mean,
decisions in June.
But decisions in June. But all of this will be over very soon. We just will not hear what their decision is. Correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, they hear on cases throughout, and then they write up the legal opinions, and it gets assigned to a particular justice. Typically, writes the opinion on behalf of all of the people voting for it, and then judges that oppose it will write a dissenting opinion, and they can also write a concurrent opinion, which is I agree with the decision, but I agree with it for a different legal reasoning.
I see.
So. It's paperwork.
All right, I'm going to remain hopeful.
But there were some fun things along with it.
Yeah. There was you were pointing out that there was a line at the 6 a.m. on Friday morning, and by noon Saturday, nearly 50 people in line for a seat.
I love that.
And I do too. And we had one nasty old hater that got in there and started screaming about abomination, and they drug his ass out.
Yes.
So that was kind of fun and theatrical. And then I love the story of Tevins2dads.com. This young boy is it's his family is the defendants, and he is chronicling the case on Tumblr. And if you go to Tevins Tevins 2TWODADS.com, you can follow him, and it's just a beautiful story and great pictures, and that's what we have, this amazing family, and there's so many of them, and they are valid. And to see this young man doing this, and he's so articulate. I mean, spells right and punctuates right. And, well, come on, there is something going on. I don't know if I think that we are that because of texting and because of shortcuts and everything, we are not seeing a lot of times on the internet very fluid and correct grammar or anything. So I'm always impressed when I see someone, put a preposition in the right place.
I'm so glad.
It's my English teacher mama coming out.
All right.
So, all right, what else do we have?
But while we're waiting on that, of course, these religious freedom bills continue to roll their way and impact us across the country. That will be the next battleground specifically on equality.
And we had a hater. We had a court saying that the religious freedom bill gives a company right to discriminate. Hands On Originals and its owner Blaine Adamson refused to produce T-shirts for the Gay and Lesbian Service Organization (GLSO), which coordinates the Lexington Pride Festival, Lexington, Kentucky. The Lexington-Fayetteville Urban County Human Rights Commission ruled that they violated the city's non-discrimination order, and Kentucky Circuit Court Judge James Ishmael overturned the commission's ruling, arguing that it impeded HOO's freedom of speech and religion. So we had a little defeat there, and I just want to, there are lots of T-shirt companies out there. One who makes my T-shirts, abctshirtcompany.com. So go to somebody who will make your pride shirts that wants the business. I mean, I don't want to. Again, let's not support people who don't want our business. You're right. I mean, this is horrible, but on the other hand.
Yes, but it's still the principle of it, because like this is going to keep happening, and of course we keep talking about like flower shops and bakers and weddings and all of that sort of
It's the
thing.
first time I've seen a T-shirt company.
But T-shirt companies and printing companies are a bigger issue, because it's like then what you're writing is in support of the opposite issue. But Kentucky passed their Religious Freedom Act in 2013 before we started rallying against them, like the one in Indiana. So this is an example of why we have to fight these in the legislative process before the law is passed, rather than having to sue to have them stricken afterward.
Well, it seems like, I mean, you pointed out that there were lots before, but there are so many just coming up.
Yeah.
Fast and furious.
Yeah.
Trying to beat this decision even.
Well, and if we win this, they're going to be even more fervor behind them. So we have to continue to be vigilant.
So in things like this, okay, so if we win this big case at the Supreme Court, these still stand, right? And they would have to be sued individually and go to the next. So that's the next fight.
Well, and this isn't even related. This is a not related issue. That's how they're able to pass these laws, because it has nothing to do with marriage. It has to do with whether or not sexual orientation and gender identity are protected from discrimination within cities, towns, and states.
But there are some that are addressing the marriage, and this is the next story.
Well, and of course, Texas, being Texas,
our home state,
a lawmaker in Texas wants to try to get around a potential ruling from the Supreme Court by withholding funding from issuing or recognizing same-sex marriage licenses in the state, so that even if the Supreme Court rules that it would... even if a court issued an order requiring the issuance or recognition of a same-sex marriage license, the state would be barred from spending any money to do so. Now, it's a Hail Mary attempt, but Texas has, I think they have super majorities and could theoretically pass it, and it's really just attempting to put as many stumbling blocks between us and equality as possible.
And it brings us to the movie that we're prepping for right now, A Very Sordid Wedding, the sequel to Sordid Lives. I'm going to be rewriting the movie to accommodate whatever the Supreme Court decision is, and some of this will play into it, these laws. That's because you pointed out that that's the next wave. That's what we're going to be fighting for a long time.
And for those of you interested, we're about a third of the way to having the budget for A Very Sordid Wedding, so if you know any big money people that want to be a part of helping us make a film, you can always hit us up.
Yeah, because it feels like that we're all just family and friends here, all 19,000 that are listening right now. There's got to be some really wealthy person who loves Sordid Lives who wants to see this made. So contact us and let us make this movie with this wonderful cast and this wonderful message.
All right, now it's time to flash through the rest of the gay news.
Well, I watched this with you. We all watched Bruce Jenner, and it was so interesting to me. I felt pain for him. So many people. I mean, there were so many haters on the internet, and then there was so much more support than I anticipated. What was your reaction?
Well, I was really impressed that I didn't, in the world of social media that I'm involved in, I didn't see any negative reactions. I thought, first of all, a disclaimer for those of you listening: the transgender community has a very specific requests as individuals about how they are treated with both names and gender pronouns. GLAAD sent out a press release before the Bruce interview saying that Bruce was still using male pronouns, and we will continue to do that on the show here out of respect for that until Bruce gives us an indication that others should be done. But just for your information, all transgender people will, if you are unsure, you can ask what their preferred pronouns are, and obviously all of them, the vast majority, prefer the pronouns of the sex that they identify with.
You know, I misunderstood because when I was listening to the show, I thought he was saying that this is the last time I will be Bruce, and now and so I misunderstood that and posted that now we can use the feminine pronouns, and someone pointed out exactly what you just said, and I said, well, I stand corrected. I had to go back.
And I think that may be very likely what Bruce is doing in his real and personal life, and part of this weird, awkward transition for public discussion of the situation may simply be that he didn't put out a statement afterwards saying, please, now that the interview is complete, switch to she. But so we are not being disrespectful.
Name, which
yes.
people are speculating what the new name is or whatever.
Which is so. How do you speculate? Like until it's announced. Like what do you? We could go through literally every name. Like that's the dumbest thing.
Someone wrote on my fan page that Belinda was his new name, and I said, "What? I didn't hear that."
That was just a nonsense tabloid. But as far as the overall reaction to it, I was. I was nervous, but I was incredibly impressed, first of all, with how ABC News and Diane Sawyer handled the interview. I thought they did a great job of just allowing him to speak about his personal journey from the very beginning through lots of the details. And then I also respected the moments they took in between to explain very basic concepts of what being transgender is. Because for those of us, especially in the LGBT community who are more familiar with this, we have to remember that there are probably many, many people who saw this, who the first transgender person they are aware of is Bruce Jenner in this interview. So giving some of the very basic foundational information while allowing Bruce to tell his particular journey, I felt that ABC News was very respectful of the subject and of Bruce.
I did too. I love Diane Sawyer. I thought she did an amazing job. It felt to me much more like a documentary than just a news. It was 2 hours long. The one thing that going back to what the negative, the biggest negative of all that I got from my fans on social media was that he's a Republican.
Well, I feel like it's actually a sort of wonderful sign of how far we have come that became the big talking point. It wasn't about transgender and transgender issues. It was about Bruce being a Republican. I think as weird as that particular obsession is, it speaks to how much the last year and people like Laverne Cox and Janet Mox and Transparent and the great discussion of transgender issues in the public sphere has increased in the last really 12 to 18 months.
Putting a face on it, and Bruce absolutely did that.
Well, and my big takeaway from the whole thing is if the reason we have had to keep up with the Kardashians and all their nonsense for so long was to provide the platform and opportunity for Bruce Jenner to become a focal point for awareness and discussion of transgender issues in our country, maybe all of that was worth it.
Well, maybe it was. And, now let's go back to our discussion that we had while we were watching it, though, that his 4 children, not the Kardashians, the ones that are not on the show, were on the special, wishing their dad well. And I thought Brody Jenner said one of the most powerful things. He said it all made sense. And I loved when he said that, because I thought, wow, that is such a sentence of support, but you and I both, the other ones weren't on it. They were not.
Well, it's interesting because
no statements except from the 2 younger ones.
Well, Kim did a big interview on the Today Show the next morning. I think that goes to the publicity-oriented nature of that particular branch of the family, in that they were like, great, Bruce will get those ratings, and then we can spread out our ratings and publicity across various. Because I'm sure we will get a very special Keeping Up with the Kardashians episode where Bruce shares it with them for the first time, in quotes.
Yes.
And then all watching this interview together. So. But even in that, again, if the Kardashians, because every one of them across social media was hugely supportive and said positive things, and I thought Bruce was really honest about the difficulty and the reaction of some of the kids. And I don't think that's about rejecting transgender. I think that's about the challenge of sharing difficult life changes with your children, whether it's divorce or coming out in various ways. I think that's can be difficult for kids. But if they all become super advocates for the transgender community, I'm sure there are many transgender people that are a little bit terrified of the things they could say, but up to this point, they've been extremely positive, and they, for better or worse, a lot of people pay attention to what they say, and as long as it's positive.
I sort of love that Perez Hilton and Chris got in a little feud, and she said, fuck you to him after. She said, I'm with him now.
Well, but I do call bullshit on the whole, because she was like, ABC didn't reach out for us to comment. Bullshit. That is a news organization.
Such a lie. They actually said she declined to be interviewed. She declined to make a statement like that. Of course, Diane Sawyer is a serious journalism. That's bullshit. So that, yeah.
And it is. It's so they can have their first responses on their own show. And fine, but so just say that.
And far be it from me to defend Perez Hilton on anything, but I think that he did have a valid point.
All right,
So,
flashing on. Well,
all
so that was
right.
Friday night, and then immediately on Saturday night was the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The attendees often lovingly referred to as Nerd Prom, although I find it a little difficult that the most like famous and successful journalists hobnobbing with A-list stars can really call themselves nerds. But it is a night where a stand-up comedian roasts the White House and Washington D.C. press, and Obama gives his own roasting speech of people as well, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, and we have some favorite quotes about Joe Biden. Obama said, "I love that man. We've gotten so close that some places in Indiana won't serve us pizza anymore."
I love that.
Yes, and this actually was my favorite. Rick Santorum announced that he would not attend the same-sex wedding of a friend or loved one, to which gays and lesbians across the country responded, "That's not going to be a problem."
That's amazing.
I thought that was so dead on.
And this year's host was Cecily Strong from Saturday Night Live, and I thought her entire 24-minute speech was brilliant. She managed to walk an incredible line between really honestly poking at serious issues without going so far into being offensive. And her specific LGBT moment was she said, "We tried to get Memories Pizza to cater this event, but they heard a rumor Barney Frank was going to be here. So thanks a lot, Barney. We could have had that world-famous Indiana pizza," which I just love. Because, like, New York pizza, Chicago pizza, Indiana pizza is not real high on that list. But she made a very insightful and incisive comments about the state of race relations in our country as well that were very well received for pointing in front of this audience of White House. So I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. And we have some GoFundMe news.
Yes. So obviously we have talked entirely too much about Melissa and her Sweet Cakes Bakery. And so it has recently been ruled in Oregon that she has been fined $135,000 for the discrimination by her company Sweet Cakes. Well, they started a GoFundMe campaign that reached $109,000 in like 24 hours or something, and then GoFundMe canceled it.
Yay.
GoFundMe issued a statement saying they do not allow money to be raised on their site for people who have been found to be in violation of the law. So then it was quickly reported that Arlene's Flowers, you know, the 70-year-old woman who ran the flower shop in Washington, had raised nearly $170,000 on her campaign, and it was also canceled. This was interesting.
I'm glad, and I loved this. The comment that the Kleins went on. They said they blamed Satan, of course, on the Facebook page, and it said evidently GoFundMe has shut down our GoFundMe page and will not let us raise any money. Satan's really at work, but I know our God has a plan and wins in the end. And then Facebook user Teresa Mitchell, my new hero today, then left this brilliant reply. Wait, so it was okay for you to refuse service to someone because you didn't agree with how they wanted to use your product, but it's not okay for GoFundMe to do the exact same thing.
Now,
yes.
I have to say, though, I wasn't 100% like, yes, when I read the headlines of these stories. No, because to me it goes to, like, the protection of terrible speech is just as important as the protection of speech that we all agree with. And so I'm really glad that GoFundMe linked it to people who have been found to be in violation of the law, that you can't raise money specifically for the cause of what they did that was being breaking the law. Because I think that, like, if they wanted to just raise money and didn't say what it was for and that kind of thing, like, I start to get ooged out a little bit when you get to defining what is appropriate and not fundraising, because the idea is, like, if no one supports this idea, then no one will give money to it. So I'm glad that it's linked specifically to law breaking, because just raising money for a cause that I don't like, I don't want to limit that, because I don't want the reverse to be true of someone being able to limit my fundraising for something that they don't agree with.
Well, they also canceled not too long ago a girl who was raising money for an abortion. So do you think that was
I didn't
wrong?
see that, so I don't know the specifics of it.
Well, she raised, so she got enough for the abortion, but they did cancel it because they didn't feel it was appropriate for GoFundMe.
Well, and certainly they get to run their business however they want, but as GoFundMe. But I do worry about dancing ever near the line of limiting people's free speech, and how you spend your money is part of that. So I like that it's linked to a conviction of the law rather than
But sweet cakes, they got almost all the fine. I mean, that was
Arlene's Flowers.
They're not too far away.
Her fine was only $1,000, and she raised $170. So
maybe she'll send some to the sweet cakes people so that they can get.
They can split it.
Okay, and the big news: the Tony Award nominees were announced, and Emerson, I haven't seen any of the shows, so we decided not to care.
Well,
wait, go ahead.
Well, we have two. One, a guy that I went to Baylor with. His play Hand to God has been nominated for at least 4 as the writer and 3 of the actors. And then a guy a wonderful entertainer named Max von Essen that I performed on Scott and Evan's Sparkle benefit with is nominated for his performance in American in Paris. I haven't seen it, but he's amazing, so I know it's well deserved.
So a Baylor grad is another playwright, and I'm a little bit jealous and also very happy for him.
Yes, flashing on.
All right. Oh,
okay. So this has
big.
been a huge story, and I'm going to outline some of the pieces, and we'll talk about it as it goes through. In New York City, at the beginning of last week, 2 well-known gay male hoteliers hosted a dinner, a small dinner party that included Ted Cruz. Now, the information about that was released the day after to the New York Times, who wrote a story about it. And then an enormous backlash started immediately. It is said that the evening focused primarily on foreign policy issues, including gay rights in Israel versus the rest of the Middle East. And apparently Ted Cruz, as they discussed LGBT rights, said, if one of my daughters was gay, I would love them just as much. Mr. Reisner, one of the hosts, was asked about the dissonance between his gay activism and being at an event for Mr. Cruz, and he said he did not agree with the senator on social issues, same-sex, but he said he felt same-sex marriage is done, it's just going to happen. Now, the outrage was swift and extreme. A Facebook page was formed called Boycott Fire Island's Pines Establishments and Out NYC Hotel. It has over 11,000 members as of today because these 2 gentlemen own the Out NYC Hotel that caters predominantly to LGBT clients, as well as the XL nightclub next door, and many of the establishments in Fire Island Pines, a long-standing gay destination. Reisner's first response to the outrage, he said, I was given the opportunity to have a candid conversation with Senator Cruz on where he stood on all issues. Senator Cruz and I disagree strongly on the issue of gay marriage, but having an open dialogue with those who have differing political opinions is a part of what this country was founded on. My tireless support of the gay community and its causes worldwide hasn't changed and will not change. But in the next day, Broadway Bears canceled its solo strip show at the Event Space 42 West because these 2 gentlemen own it. They said, we cannot in good conscience hold an event at a venue whose owners have alienated our community. We do business with and accept fundraising support from a variety of people across a wide spectrum of political and religious affiliations. It is a rare instance when the actions of a donor negatively impacts us as an organization and potentially jeopardizes our relationship with others whose support is integral to our success. But when it does occur, silence is not a neutral position. It is complicit. So, and then the New York City Gay Men's Chorus also canceled their event. So this response was extreme and large and vociferous from the gay community that these 2 men had this dinner with Ted Cruz.
And I wonder what's going to happen to Fire Island. And I performed at the Pines last year.
Well, so as it has continued and it has not lessened, Ian Reisner, one of the 2 gentlemen, wrote an apology that has only made the situation worse.
Oh, it's just I will read it. It's just. Let me read it and then we'll comment on it. I am shaken to my bones by the emails, texts, postings, and phone calls of the past few days. I made a terrible mistake. I was ignorant, naive, and much too quick in accepting a request to co-host a dinner with Cruz at my home without taking the time to completely understand all of his positions on gay rights. I've spent the last 24 hours reviewing videos of Cruz's statements on gay marriage, and I am shocked and angry. I sincerely apologize for hurting the gay community and so many of our friends, family, allies, customers, and employees. I will try my best to make up for my poor judgment again. I am deeply sorry. And I say bullshit. There is absolutely no way that this man of intelligence who says that he has worked tirelessly for our community, that he did not know. I mean, you can't be gay and not have read something about Ted Cruz and the negativity that he has spewed towards our community.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, I do agree with that. But now let's talk about it for a minute, because I'm sort of interested in some of the nuances of this situation that I think are about a multitude of issues. First of all, the day after the New York Times second story came out, I posted it on my Facebook and said, let's discuss. I'm a little concerned about leaping so quickly to ruin the business of two gay men who have businesses that cater to gay people who have a record of supporting LGBT causes simply for having a dinner party.
And employ many, many gay employees.
For having a dinner party with someone we all do not like. And let me state clearly, I am not a fan of Ted Cruz. I think he is one of the worst that there are out there. I don't like that they had dinner with him. I don't think he's someone whose mind you can change. But one, the event was not a fundraiser, which people leapt to saying that it was. Now, I get the idea that, of course, I'm sure he expected donations for showing up at such an intimate gathering, but nonetheless, it was not officially
so they're Republicans.
A fundraiser. But so obviously the root of this is they are Republicans. And several other people have pointed out they definitely have fundraised for other Republican candidates. Now, on one side, I completely understand the idea of LGBT people who do not want to patronize LGBT businesses, knowing that the owners who make profits off of it are using that profit to donate to candidates that do not support our equality and our rights. So I completely understand that root of the boycott. But I go a little bit further, and you and I talked about this briefly yesterday. Here is sort of my question, I guess, in it, because it's not that I'm against the boycott, and actually, as it's gone further along, I've supported it more, but so many people called for a boycott so quickly without more of this information that I wonder about our knee-jerk reactions sometimes, because these men definitely do support LGBT causes, and 1 in 5 LGBT people identify as Republican or conservative. So what is the end of this direction, I guess, is my question. Are we not going to patronize any businesses owned by LGBT people who are Republicans at their base? Even if it isn't LGBT, like, are we not going to go to Republican gay accountants? Are we not going to go to Republican gay bakers? Where does this end, I guess, is my question.
Well, I think it's a really gray area, but I do get very angry given what is going on right now, where we are so close and we're fighting so hard, and we have fought so tirelessly, and I feel like that there is a counter going on. When you can say I support as much and I've given all of this money, blah 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 blah, but when you give money to somebody like Ted Cruz, which I would be interested to see if they have,
there hasn't been any evidence of
no
proof
so
of that.
Far.
Yeah.
No. And then a couple of things really piss me off about these individuals. That fucking statement. I mean, it's just bullshit. And then the fact that they, as you pointed out to me yesterday, when I said, well, they said that they did some fundraiser for Hillary, and you said, no, they did not. They rented their space for a fundraiser for Hillary, correct?
Yes.
So it's like there are these lies going on, and I feel like that at some point we've got to say, hey, I'm fed up. I'm tired of while you count your money, I'm going to continue to fight.
I get that, except that we don't protest every Republican business in America.
Because it's not so high profile as this.
But massive corporations in our country are run and owned by Republicans, and we don't not go to those businesses, and they don't do anything positive for the LGBT community at all. I don't like that these guys are Republican, and I don't like that they use some of the money from their business to support Republican candidates, but they do also do positive LGBT things. So
yes, but sometimes that's negated. I mean, when you go, okay, I gave to HRC, yes, but you're giving to you're hosting a dinner party for Ted Cruz, and I don't care, as you said, Emerson, I don't care what they say. There has got to be, at least from that candidate, the hope that there's going to be some deep pockets that give to his campaign. He would not show up. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't get more flack.
But that doesn't change the fact that we don't protest every Republican in America.
Yeah, well, I believe that we would protest Republicans if they got this attention, if they did something that got the media fired up. I think we would.
But there are Republicans all over America that host benefits for Ted Cruz, that own businesses all across America, and that do nothing for our community. And we don't put up big things that say, here's everyone that's ever donated to Ted Cruz and every business that they are associated, and do not shop at any of these stores. And those businesses don't do anything for our community. So is there some hypocrisy in holding our community members to an even higher standard if we're not going to go after every Republican business?
Possibly. Yes, possibly. But let me ask you this. if you had a choice,
Right.
and you knew that the Republican company was supporting that gay Republicans owned a company, and you had a choice, just say, the tank top that you're wearing right now, would you go and buy it at the Democrat who is supporting our causes?
Okay, yes, that's fine, but that's not the analogy I'm using. I'm saying, say half of Fire Island was owned by a Republican, just a regular Republican, and the other half is owned by a gay Republican. Which establishment would you stay at?
I don't know. I guess the gay Republican,
right?
And I see your point, because I certainly didn't do any research. If I played the Pines last year, which I did play the Pines, I didn't ask, well, is this owned by a Democrat or a Republican? I did not ask that question.
And that's all. And I'm saying it for the discussion of just how we react as a community. I think it's terrible. And I think, ironically, if they hadn't issued these apologies and stuck to their guns and said, look, we operate a business and we're really supportive of the community, but this is how we feel politically, like, I would have been able to at least respect that. I'm not saying I think this is horrible. They shouldn't have done it. They should have known better. But I just think discussing some of these complicated reactions is important in our community. That's all.
And then Ted Cruz went on to say, I know it's been a long time since we've seen it, but this is what it means to be truly a big tent Republican instead of a pander. He also called the LGBT community intolerant, and I will take that, because I am not I am intolerant.
I actually think the worst thing of the situation is that it allowed Ted Cruz the opportunity to hold up and say, see, I met with some gay people and that pissed off my base, so I'm kind of a moderate, and then went on the very next day to introduce
2 more anti-LGBT bills. I'm not going to go into them, because it's just one
just
right
more
after,
of his bullshit,
more rhetoric and more bullshit. Just using his own word, pandering. He is just pandering to a certain clientele to try and there's a part of me, I told you, I said, God, I hope he does get the nomination.
Oh, because he'd be so easy to beat.
He would be so easy to beat.
Yes.
With beady eyes and that nastiness. Okay.
All right, well, flashing on.
Onward to shirtless humps.
Well, yes, we'll do some quick fun stories. You guys, it is a time of mourning for our community, because Abercrombie & Fitch has announced that they are rebranding and there will no longer be shirtless men at the doors to their stores. That was the only point of that closing company being in existence.
I am so sad.
It is a tragic day.
Are you sad, John? Are you sad? But they're rebranding because their profits are down, so they feel like that they need, and they did get a lot of flack,
deservedly so.
Deservedly so, for hiring only attractive people, and they were able to get away with that. And now they're changing all of that rhetoric, which they defended with such fervor.
Yes.
So
for so long.
So I think that that's a positive thing.
Oh, it totally is, and mostly I'm kidding. But I mean, let's be honest. Those years and years ago, when they did those clothing catalogs that were mostly naked people, and you thought, how is this selling clothes to anybody? They were, it was like softcore porn.
Well, I predict that those will be very valuable on eBay.
Be selling those
because they're not going to be available anymore.
Well, rest in peace to the sexy Santas in front of Abercrombie & Fitch.
And then we have a North Dakota anti-LGBT lawmaker who was caught on Grindr. Representative Randy Boning, I believe is the way you said it. 50 what? Boning. Is that his name?
Come on, yes.
Boning, a 52-year-old Republican legislator from Fargo, was outed on Grindr. He was using the name Top Man. I believe we have his picture and his Grindr.
Wait, but you have to include the punctuation.
Oh, Top Man ! Exclamation mark! Like there's just no doubt at all. He's
like it was
top
like Top Man.
He's not that attractive. He's sending the man somebody sexually suggestive messages and an unsolicited dick pic. Oh my God, on Grindr, how horrible. That's what, and then he said that's what gay guys do on gay sites, don't they? That's how things happen on Grindr. It's a gay chat site. It's not the first thing you do on that site. That's what we do, exchange pics on the site. So he's basically saying, yes, I am gay and I'm participating in gay activities on Grindr, yet he has voted against anti-discrimination bills. A Capitol employee told him, a fellow House lawmaker who supported the bill said Boning would be targeted for retaliation if he didn't vote for it. So he was basically saying, "Oh, I had to vote for all these because I would not." And then the other thing that he said is that he was basically representing his constituents. So he voted to represent them accurately.
That is what every outed Republican politician
Mr.
has
Boning,
ever said.
your career is over.
But hey, he could star in the porn Boning.
Boning, and well, I don't think so. I don't think anybody wants to see him in porn.
You never know.
I'm sorry. Do you, John? Do you want to see him? I don't want to see him in porn. Top in or bottom? Oh, I'm sorry. I just did that. Almost the gay gasp. Ow! Oh my God!
Once again and forever and always, if you vote against our rights and you are one of us, that is the only time outing is acceptable. That kind of hypocrisy should always, the light should be shown.
And that's when we don't want you. There are so many people. Welcome to our community. We do not want you.
All right, flashing on. This was a really interesting incident that relates to another issue in our community. An LGBT organization in South Florida, the Impulse Group of South Florida, was under fire this past week after hosting a highly publicized pool party event called Get Wet at a Miami hotel, where they imposed a controversial entry fee. If you were under 40, it was free, and if you were over 40, the fee was $50. Well, the South Florida gay community kind of went up in arms about the policy, saying that it was ageism and discriminatory to older members of our community. And obviously, the issue of age is something we talk about a lot in our community. The Impulse Group put out a statement that said, in part, "We want you to know it was never our intention to discriminate against anyone for any reason, may it be age or any other factor. We apologize for any misinterpretation of our intentions and would like to say once and for all that ageism played no role in our decisions towards our pricing structure for the last event." They have stated that their goal as an organization is to help reduce the risk of HIV and AIDS infection in the 18 to 35-year-old demographic through a variety of advertising, promotions, and most of all, events.
They could have worded it better.
Well, I think I think there's two problems here. Yes, because I think one, we really do have a problem in our community of not of treating our older members of our community with disdain or disgust. There is no denying that. Now, I think that clashes weirdly with the specific focus of this group, obviously being focused on younger members of the community, young adults, young to middle adults, 18 to 35. So to me, it seems like if their goal is to get young people in the door in order to educate and inform them and use other members of the community that are supporting to help fund the events in order to educate those young people.
Don't alienate them.
And they need to say that really clearly.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sorry if it's a little too wordy for your postcard, but you need to say, event focused on educating 18 to 35-year-olds so they can attend free. If other members of the community welcome to attend and support, a $50 donation requested.
Yeah, and it reeks of, and probably maybe wasn't, it reeks of backpedaling when the statement.
I mean, I think probably that it's like they're not a super old organization. I think they said they've been around for like 10 years, so it's probably younger people focused on educating their peers, which is a great thing, but I think being considerate of the perception. But we talked about, the great example is this is done across all the whole world. It's the reason ladies' nights exist, where ladies drink free because bars want the ladies to come, so the men will come to meet the ladies. So there is an element of often you target your attention at what is, quote, the most desirable group. This just sort of laid rather bare and ugly what that group is for this organization.
Well, it's insulting. I mean, it's like Tinder charging people over 50 more money than they do their other. It gets to be, it just goes, hey.
Yes, flashing on.
All right, well, another reason for me to go to Dallas, Tallywhackers, a new bar and restaurant, is going to have scantily it's got like the Hooters for men.
Yes.
And they had a Craigslist ad, and we've got it in the chat room. It's the newest and most exciting place to be. It's going to be opening in May, and I just wonder if Aunt Sissy had anything to do with the title. I mean, we grew up with that word.
The word, yes.
But interesting enough, I know we're running so behind, but Tallywhackers is spelled two different ways legitimately on the internet.
I do not care, Kate Westmoreland.
One has an H and one does not. It's Tallywhackers and Tallywhackers.
I'm so glad that you took the time to share that.
I think that it's important. And I think we'll get more letters about that than anything else that we did today.
I don't think this restaurant's real.
You don't?
I still think, there have been news stories across the entire gay blog internet about this, and it is all based on a Craigslist ad and 2 photos on a Facebook page with 2 models. I'm sorry, if they had a hiring event for this and a whole bunch of people showed up to get jobs at Tallywhackers, they could have put up a photo with like 10 people in it. It's supposed to open next month. So if you're in Dallas, somebody go over to Lemon and see if this place is actually opening, because I'm not convinced that it's not just some practical joke.
All right, and tell us about this wonderful sweet
let's
story.
skip that one. And let's go on and do, let's check in with Crazy. We only got 3 minutes left. left.
Oh, okay. Well, we just have to continue to check in with Crazy with Pat Robertson. And you know what, Emerson? We didn't plan this out, but would you be the female
yes,
that wrote?
I would love to.
We could do a little acting here. I'll be Patty. I'll be Crazy Pat Robertson.
And I will
Pappy Pat.
I will be the woman who is sharing her torture with asking dear luminous Pat Robertson for his help. Now, she said, "My husband and I are Christians and have been together for 11 years. Recently, I found out he cheated on me with a male Christian friend in our church. He says it was a mistake, that it just happened while they were both drunk, and he wants me to forgive him. I don't know if I can. What should I do?"
There was a long, long pause before Pappy Pat answered this, and then he goes, "He's been married for 11 years. This guy got drunk. Well, hey, drunk. He didn't know what he was dealing with. He says, she says, should I forgive? Of course you should. If he were this way all the time, if he's a habitual drunk, if he is a habitual homosexual, if he is a habitual philanderer, then by all means take a hike. But one time, 11 years, don't throw it all away."
This is crazy to me. Like, Pat Robertson's like, oh, that's just a little slip up. That's just that one time. And they were just drunk. First of all, you're not supposed to be drunk. Listen, why didn't he start there?
Yeah, why did he say that? We don't believe in drinking, honey. They both were drunk. These church members got drunk.
That's the only reason.
And sucked cock. That happens. When you get drunk, you suck cock.
It is. You go from the Boone Farms to the butt sex. One right to the other every time.
Well, I say it every week. Just die.
I mean,
go to Jesus, Pat.
But it's literally like the fidelity is less important than the marriage contract. It's like, it's like let sleeping dogs lie. Yeah, as Dolly Parton said in the movie Straight Talk when she got on that panel with that fake Dr. Phil guy, she said, "You know who came up with the phrase let sleeping dogs lie? A dog."
You love that movie.
Oh my God, so much. If you've never seen Dolly Parton in Straight Talk, it has some of the best one-liners in the history of film. Where can people get tickets for the shows this weekend in Palm Springs?
Well, go to my Facebook page. It's just Del Shores Fan Club on Facebook, or just find Del Shores, and it's all over there. But uncabaret.com, and then just Google the Purple Room, and the tickets are on sale. The Thursday is almost sold out, so grab your tickets, and let's have some fun tomorrow night and Friday and Sunday night.
And as always, if you want to find Del Shores, hit him up on the Facebook at Del Shores Fan Club, on Twitter at Del Shores. As you all know, I've become super obsessed with Periscope. I'm Periscoping the show right now. You can find him on there at Del Shores, and me. You can always send your hate to me at Actually Emerson on Twitter and on Periscope, and Emerson Collins Official on Facebook. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, we had so much more to talk about, but we ran out of time.
We'll save some of it for next week.
Yeah, we'll bring it back next. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week, Wednesday, 3 p.m. And next is Tony Sweet, and after that is the delicious and the audacious Ann Walker.
Tell your friends.
Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of hell. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Hey, I'm Del Shores.
And I'm Emerson Collins, and we host
the Del and Emerson Show. Straight talk.
Real gay.
With segments including Catching Up with Crazy,
Flashing through the gay news,
Quality Updates,
and What's Gay in Sports Ball.
We discuss all that's serious.
And definitely not so serious.
In gay pop culture, entertainment, and politics, and we have so many opinions.
On so many things.
And very little censor.
What's a censor?
Catch the commentary, hilarity, and unfiltered nonsense all on the Del and Emerson Show.
Live Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific, only on UBN Radio.
Straight talk.
Real gay.
I can only feel pity for those who ain't me. What did I do to deserve such peace? Please say this one doesn't end. I love the way you shiver and shake when I kiss you and you're soft.